everyone. Welcome to Superhero with a Cane, podcast number 6. Today, I want to talk about a topic that's maybe familiar to a lot of you, being your own advocate. An advocate is somebody that speaks on your behalf, pushes tries to get what you need out there in front of your doctors. And I think sometimes, when you're living with disease, especially when you're living with multiple sclerosis, uh, we don't necessarily mean to, but we are not our best advocate. So I think that for me, as many cognitive and fatigue issues as I have, I've always found that being your own advocate is the best medicine. There's an old phrase that I grew up with. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. I certainly never mean to be a pain in the ass to my doctors or to the public, but sometimes you have to get what you need. We often get sucked into a feeling that our doctors and our healthcare industry knows it all. They know better than us. I go back to the very beginning when I talked about in my journey. I talked about the story of me going to the emergency room, and the doctor saying that the emergency room was for sick people. You really shouldn't be here. Why don't you go home? And my wife had to remind us, and I say that as I talk about being your own advocate, but your spouse, your significant other, if they're working with you, I consider that being your own advocate. But if it wasn't for me staying in the hospital, I wouldn't have gotten the MRIs, the tests. Yes, it did not lead to a diagnosis at that time, but it led to pushing and pushing and pushing. And when you're your own advocate, you're doing for me, I'm always looking online to see what's, whether a lot of it through social media, a lot of it just online on what medications are coming out. I remember, getting diagnosed, and my doctor put me on Tisabri for, I was on Tisabri for 5.5 years, which was an infusion I had to go to the hospital every month to get. And the more I looked into it, and Tisabri was for relapsing remitting patients. He told me at the time he thought I was, already secondary progressive. So I was confused. Like, why am I on this relapsing remitting drug? And it turns out that the insurance, I was on Medicare, would pay for this. So I don't know. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it caused confusion for me. And as my disease changed and I got worse, and I started learning about secondary progressive MS more, and medications that were coming out. I pushed and pushed and pushed, and we ended up ultimately switching to a different drug, which was a pill for secondary progressive. Now, in the end, that ultimately ended up being the wrong diagnosis, and that ended up being a drug that didn't work. So, but it was my decision. It was me and my wife's decision. I wasn't getting better. I did go seek a second opinion at NYU Langone at that time, and he personally didn't see that what I was doing was any different than what he would do, what my current doctor was doing. and so I, but it felt good being my own. I wasn't going to sit back and have decisions made on my behalf. I was going to be my own advocate and make decisions for myself based on the knowledge I was given. Yes, you have to judge, what your doctor's saying, and I have have a brief understanding of B cells versus T cells and what the medication does and why I'm on it. And I have to really trust that my doctor's making the best decision. But ultimately, it's my decision. And I did. I ended up, switching because I felt I wasn't getting any better. I ended up switching doctors, and the doctor I went to, re-diagnosed me as primary progressive MS, and it is a bear. Only 15% of people have primary progressive MS, and so man, there's not a lot of information out there. There's not a lot of people fighting for you, so you got to fight for yourself. I'm sorry. I'm reading my notes here and trying to make sure that I stay on topic. So, what could being your own advocate mean? For me, I was living in no man's land for so long that I felt like I had to do something. So I found a support group, an MS support group, where you can go and listen to other people living with the disease. And also there were topics and speakers and voice your opinion. And so I went and did that. I listened and I spoke, and I asked questions. And part of being your own advocate is, what do you need? So a lot of people that were in the group, saw me walking in with my cane and saw me struggling as the hours went on. So I eventually was offered a walker from a very good friend of mine. Also, as the years went on, I looked into getting a chairlift, and we just couldn't afford it. It didn't make sense. But I got a call a couple weeks ago from someone from the chairlift company that remembered me and said, "Hey, we had somebody unfortunately that passed away, and they want to donate their chairlift. Do you want it?" And we looked into putting the chairlift in the house. It would have been for free, and that was all because of me showing up to an MS support group meeting, me inquiring, me being that squeaky wheel that gets the oil, and somebody reaching back out and offering a chairlift. Thank God I've been given many other things because of showing that I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to try to persist. So my good friend Billy Havens had actually donated a couple of his. He had two scooters, a heavy duty scooter and one that was like a light one that for traveling around that I use quite often. So I wouldn't have gotten that if I wasn't my own advocate. Stem cell, is a stem cell right for you? A lot of people look into it. I did my homework, had all my records sent over to a stem cell company. Me and my wife insisted on speaking to a doctor. In the beginning, the felt like we were being sold the stem cell package, and the doctor ended up looking at it and saying, I don't think this would be a good match for you. I think it'd actually be pretty risky, and you shouldn't do it. Things could be turned out worse for you. So, but that was my own decision, and you got to make your own decision financially. What are you doing to help yourself? A lot of us have to stop working, have to go on disability, are impacted financially because of this. There are grants, there are programs out there through the different societies. I support MS4MS, which has been a huge impact in our life. Um, there's MS Society, MS Association, MS Foundation, Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. Just keep looking up different foundations. There are even local charities that have nothing to do with MS that will help people with disease. So me and my family have been able to benefit from these charities, help only because I just went up and beyond, reached out, got information, got help, and there are ways to help you with whether you need that car, you need a van with a ramp, you need help with your rent, you need help with a ramp outside your house, help with a chairlift. There are associations and, like I just mentioned, groups that if you reach out to, they will help you and they'll give you the financial assistance to do this. It opens doors, even this this podcast, I think, opens doors. If you're people being able to listen and understand that they're not alone is a big help. So, don't be afraid to be your own advocate, whether it comes to your doctor, switching doctors, your medication, assistance you may need, your research. It has become increasingly difficult for me as the years have progressed because of my cognitive issues. I used to have a lot more ability and I could time things better. Now I'm struggling more and more cognitively, so I don't have the energy that I used to. But for those of you that do, don't give up and don't sit there and allow other people to make decisions on your behalf without having input. You've got to be your own advocate, do your own research, make your own phone calls, send the emails, be a thorn in the side of the people, so that way, they'll see that you're not going to go away. They see that you need help, and you continue to question and do the things you do. So there's another topic that I want to talk about today, and that is, don't be so hard on yourself. I personally tend to. There are times where I look at our situation and that we're in, and whether it's my wife having to work as hard as she does, or the kids being limited with what we can do for college and help, and it automatically it can come back to you, and it comes back to me, and I do have this underlying guilt that this wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for me living with this disease. And something happened this week. One day I was telling my son about it. One day I'm going into Walgreens to pick up medication, and I'm leaving, and there's a guy outside that his car is broken down. He's got the hood up, and he has one of those remote jumper starters to jump your battery, and he has no idea how to use this thing, and I have no idea how to use this thing. So as I'm getting in the car, I just said to him, I'm like, dude, I go, do you need a hand? I have cables. So we figured out how to jump his car, and we used the cables. And I remember when my son Michael's car years ago, we used to have to let it run for a little while. So we're sitting there, we're letting his car run and run and run. He tried, it wouldn't start. I'm like, stop trying, let's just sit here for a few minutes, let it run. So finally the thing charged up, battery was jumped, and the guy's car started. And I I made sure I told them. I was like, make sure you let that thing run for 30 minutes or the charge is gonna be no good. So I walked away feeling pretty good. I'm like, okay, that's a normal thing. Trust me, I tripped over the cable, the jumper cables twice. Fell on my ass. The guy felt horrible. I get in my car. I fell down. This part I didn't tell anybody, but fuck it. So anyway, so I felt pretty good. I'm like, all right, I did something normal. I helped the kid out. Now the next day, I had to come home and sleep for 2.5 hours after that. It beat the shit out of me. The next day, I went to the store, pick up another prescription. I come back, and as I'm about to pull into the handicap spot at the store, a woman takes her shopping cart and pushes it and leaves it right at the top of the handicap spot. And I'm sitting there, and at this point, I'm very tired. And cognitively, I'm like, all I could do was get through the short trip I had at the store. And the last thing I needed was somebody leaving the shopping cart at the top of the handicap spot. So I beat my horn, and I pointed and asked her, I said, can you move it? And apparently I could get in I had to drive around it to get in. And as I'm doing that, I rolled down my window and I told the woman, I said, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize I could still get in. She didn't make it very easy for me. And she let me know that, well, why did you have to beat me like that? You scared me. And so my answer to her was, go fuck yourself. And that wasn't very good. I pulled in the spot, and I immediately regretted saying that to her. And so then, as I'm getting out of the car with my cane, she pulls up, and she said to me, I didn't appreciate you saying that. And so I apologized again. I said, I'm really sorry. I explained to her I have MS, and this is the last thing I need. I'm standing there holding onto my car and holding my cane and trying to explain to someone, I have MS, I've got cognitive issues, I shouldn't have said that to you, I'm very sorry. And she let me know, that really wasn't right. That really wasn't the right thing to do, you shouldn't have said that to me. So I did say I'm sorry. But I gotta tell you, I beat myself up for the next hour over that. I didn't think. I was so exhausted and tired. I just reacted, and I shouldn't have said what I said, but I did. Shouldn't have told her to go fuck herself. And I felt terrible. And I came home and I slept for quite some time, an hour and a half. But the bottom line with this story is, we didn't ask for this. We didn't plan on this. It just happened. We have this disease. Things, getting through a day can be brutal. Moment by moment, we're trying to live with this disease and make decisions in the real world with people that don't have this disease. So don't beat yourself up. Don't be so hard on yourself. You didn't ask for it. We're all doing as best that we can. So that's all I got for today. Mm-hmm. I'm wrapping it up. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend, and go get them.